Now let's move on to the current big project in the world of semantic metadata, schema.org. Now, the history of schema.org is actually kind of interesting. It's a collaboration between Google, Yahoo, and Bing, which of course is Microsoft. Now, this is probably one of the few projects ever on which those three organizations have collaborated directly. But as I think you'll see, schema.org really serves all of their interests in a very direct way. Now, to oversimplify, schema.org is like microformats in that it is a way to embed semantic metadata in web documents. Schema.org is based on something called microdata, which is actually different than microformats, but serves a similar function. It's a way of embedding semantic markup in web documents. I'm not going to talk about microdata separately in this unit. And the reason for that is because it would mostly just be redundant. Schema.org mostly is microdata. The work on schema.org has taken a lot of the prior work on microdata and extended it. So when I talk about schema.org, understand that that's based very heavily in microdata. So I'm also more or less talking about microdata. Now, schema.org is markup, which means that it's meant to be consumed and used by algorithms and applications, search engines and web browsers and the like. Remember, of course, that who is behind it are three of the major search engines in the world at this point in time. Also, because schema.org is markup, bear in mind that it's human readable mostly, but it's not really intended for human consumption. So now let's look at an example. This is a really dumbed down personal web page about me. Now remember that the div tag in HTML indicates a division or a section of a web page. So what we're looking at here basically is just a big undifferentiated block of text between an open and a closed div that we as humans can read and understand what it means, but as far as an algorithm is concerned, it's just a big undifferentiated block of text. Now here is the same data marked up with schema.org markup. The first thing to notice is that the div tag contains more data in it. You have item scope, which indicates the scope of the item being described. In this case, it's everything from the open div to the closed div, which means this whole block. And there is an item type, which refers to a URL, schema.org/person. Now, schema.org/person is the declaration of the entity person, basically in the schema namespace. And we'll look at that namespace in a moment. But the opening div is a declaration that the block of text that follows is encoded with semantic data in the schema.org markup, and that what follows is the entirety of that marked up block of text. Now, the first thing we find is span, open span, close span, and item prop equals name. That's item property equals name. The item property here is that this is a name embedded in this block of text, and this is the value for the name, my name. So what this tag here is saying is that contained within the open and the close span, we have an item property that is a name, and here is the value of the name. We have other item properties. We have item property job title. And job title is associate professor, and it's contained within this open span and this closed span. We have item property affiliation, and the affiliation is University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And oh, by the way, there's also an item property URL, which indicates this URL here. So we have item properties embedded within this block of text that indicate this thing is a name, this thing is an affiliation, etc. Now, another property of me is my address. And we have a div embedded in the larger div about me. So we have two nested divs. The first large one, which is all the information about me, and the second smaller one, which is just information about my address. Now, the first div had item scope that referred to a person. The second div has item scope, which refers to a postal address. So what this markup is indicating is that everything between this opening div and this closed div is about an address. Then within that block, we have item property street address, item property locality, region, and postal code. So we have the address nested within the larger block of information about me, because my address is a property of me, refers to the namespace for postal addresses, and then the postal address has properties of its own. Now let's look at the entities that exist in schema.org.